In this video, we're going to deploy Istio in the different workload clusters using Gloo's Lifecycle Manager features. If Istio is already installed on the cluster, Gloo can discover it, but Gloo has the capability of automating the lifecycle of Istio. So let's check out that feature. We can let Gloo Mesh deploy everything you need, but in this case, in this lab, we're going to follow a production-ready pattern of keeping the ingress gateway service objects separate. We do this because most of the time when users deploy Istio in clusters on the cloud, they use a service of type load balancer for gateways, which creates a host name or IP address for you automatically. And you want to be able to reuse that host name or IP even if you jump between different versions of Istio. So if I start with Istio 116 and want to go to 117, I don't want to create a new load balancer when I upgrade. So that's why it's a best practice to create these service objects up front and put all the annotations that you need based on the service provider that you're using. And then we'll see later that when we deploy Istio using Gloo Lifecycle Management, we can tell Gloo Mesh that we want to use these custom services that we've created manually. So we'll start by creating this namespace called Istio Gateways, where we're going to deploy the Istio ingress gateway for north-south traffic as well as for cross-cluster communication. Again, you could create everything in one namespace like Istio system, but we'll try to follow a best production-ready best practice. So we'll create one service for Istio ingress gateway for the north-south traffic that's going to be sent. That's going to be listening on 443 and 80, and then we do that also for another gateway, another service for the gateway for the cross-cluster communication that will use these different ports. So we'll do that for cluster 1, and we do that for cluster 2. So basically you create two services in each cluster. And in this example, we're using MetalLB, but if you're using Kubernetes from a cloud provider, they typically generate the creation of the cloud load balancers. So now if I go look at my services here, I can see that my ingress gateway service has an external IP, and then my east-west gateway service has this other IP. Now we're ready to use the Lifecycle Manager object to tell Gloo Mesh that, what version of Istio we wanted to install and in which cluster. You could have one Lifecycle Manager where we define multiple clusters, which is good if you want to upgrade all of your clusters at the same time, or you can have one object per cluster. It's really up to you. We won't go through all the details of what's here. You can see there's a lot of settings that we've added just because in this lab we want to show all the various features. We'll do that in other videos. Things like integrating virtual machines, etc. So that's why we have a little bit of extra set of options here. Note that we're using this hub and tag, which says that we don't want to use the default Istio Docker images, but instead we want to use the ones that are built by Solo. So the Solo images, they're not a fork of Istio, they're just images for each version of Istio where Solo adds extra Envoy filters, especially for things for providing extra capabilities around gateway. There's also like custom builds of Istio, like FIPS version, ARMS version. There's FIPS distro list, different combinations, etc. So here we're just saying that we want to deploy in cluster 1, and we want to deploy Istio 116.4 using Solo images. And when you apply this, we're telling Gloo management plane to automate the deployment of the Istio operator. So it's going to deploy an Istio operator on the first cluster. So you can see here this GM IOP 116. So this is the Istio operator that's going to create the Istio operator objects. And these objects would correspond to what we've just described in the Istio Lifecycle Manager. So this should be very similar. So this is same as kind of what you said in the Istio Lifecycle Manager object. And then we can see that the operator itself is going to deploy Istio-D with the options that we've configured. And we'll show in a different video how we can do a proper upgrade, like a canary upgrade without any disruption. But right now we're just deploying Istio on cluster 1, and we will deploy the 2 gateways. So for that, we'll use another object called Gateway Lifecycle Manager object, where we can say we want to use the Istio 116 revision that we just deployed. And you can see we want to use that custom service that we created in the very first step. And this just tells them that we want to reuse that service that we created. And again, we're using a different gateway lifecycle management for ingress of cluster 1, and then the east-west of cluster 1 as well. But you could really do it in whichever way you prefer. You can have one for both of them if you wanted. So next, we're going to create these objects, and the operator is already there. So we're just going to apply all of these new Istio operator objects, and the operator is going to deploy the gateways on our behalf. So we can see we already have the ingress gateway deployed, and the east-west gateway is deployed as well. So we just did cluster 1, so we'll do exactly the same for cluster 2. So we deploy Istio-D and ingress gateway and the east-west gateway, and everything's declarative. We don't need to worry about the order of applying things. You can just create the gateway lifecycle manager before or whatever. Everything's going to be reconciled at the end. So just apply, you can just apply everything at once, and very quickly we should see the operator come up, Istio-D come up, and all the gateways, etc. And if we switch to the UI, you can also see that things are being discovered. So you can see it discovered Istio 116.4 that we just deployed. It's got solo images. And now the same for the second cluster. So that means everything should be ready to go. We also defined some extra environment variables that we're going to use in the later labs and videos, where when we want to access the ingress gateway, when we want to do different tests, access the services, etc. So, I mean, these environment variables correspond to the services that we just created. So it's a way for us to get the IP address of the ingress gateway of cluster 1, for example. We're going to assign that to a variable, and we'll also set the port for 4443.